not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
How would you guys feel if we just spent the entire State of the Wolves episode doing some new math to the 50-win concept from last week? Let's see, 13, and it was 16-3 a week ago, and everyone laughed.
It's been real good. It's been real good.
And now they just need to go 13-3 because they haven't lost in like 2 weeks. So we're going to get to our State of the Wolves Monday here, go through our categories after we shout out my bookie jumping on board here for the stretch run at Flagrant Howls. You know?
Correct. And that's because, of course, March Madness is back, and my bookie putting $100,000 on the line. Think that you can build the perfect bracket? Perhaps you can. Take your shot. My bookie's $100,000 bracket contest. Bracket gets busted. Oh, no. What are you going to do? No problem. Single game matchups are where the money is made. Bet every game, scope out players, player props. It's fantastic. Okay, that's fun. Sign up now with promo code Flagrant Howls. That's right, Flagrant Howls. Claim your deposit bonus. Go to mybookie.website/Flagrant Howls. That's mybookie.website/Flagrant Howls. Make March Madness more fun with my bookie. Again, you can bet the tournament, and then if things blow up, inevitably they do at times, right, boys? You can just start to hone in on games and props. Make March Madness as fun as possible with my bookie.
Love it. Love it. So, all right, Dex is going to lead us through the overview as he does every Monday. Then we'll go through our categories, but it's been a nice little week for the Wolves. Easy schedule doesn't play itself, so you got to beat the teams on your easiest schedule in the NBA, and they did just that since last Monday, Dex.
Yeah, I think all high watermarks on our State of the Wolves episode here today. So the Wolves are now 37-29. They're up to 10th in the seventh in the Western Conference, 10th in offensive rating. I believe that is the highest mark they have gotten in the offensive rating category. So they are still 7th in the West in terms of playoff seeding. They're tied with Golden State for the 6th seed. They're at the same record. They're 3 games behind the 5th seed in Houston. But good news, they are 6 games up on the 10th seed Phoenix Suns. So they've also distanced themselves. You'd like to see them get up still from that play-in, but they've won 5 in a row, 37-29, 10th in offensive rating, 6th in defensive rating. They have an 87% chance to make the playoffs per ESPN. That's 93% on Basketball Reference. And both sites have the Wolves as a 0.8% chance to win the whole bleeping thing.
Disrespectful.
It's gone up. It has gone up. They're you beat 5 bad teams, and then finally it goes up, I guess. And if the playoffs started today, the Wolves would host the Clippers in a play-in situation. So that is your State of the Wolves vibe check. What's the Wolves vibe check for you, Judd? What do you have for us?
Opportunistic, baby. Opportunistic. Look, this is what we expected. I mean, we probably expected it months ago, but so they have played 6 consecutive games against sub-500 teams. They are 5-1. They lost the first game to the Jazz. Since then, they have beaten, in order, the Suns by 18, the 76ers by 14, the Hornets by 15, the Heat by 2, and then the Spurs last night, they trounced them by 17. Add it all together, do the math on your calculator, and you have a 13.2 average margin of victory in those past 5 games. So I would say, February ends, they're not playing great, right? They lost 4 or 5. They were playing some good teams. Then they lose at the end of February to the Jazz. That's a bummer. But when we did this show last Monday, we basically said, beat the teams that you should beat, and you're about to go through a stretch of games where that is possible. They have done exactly that. That, my friends, is the definition, if you look it up, of opportunistic, Phil Mackey.
Yeah, I'll piggyback, and you tell me if positive Phil is maybe a little too positive on this Monday here, but Wolves vibes are better than they were last year. And allow me to explain here. Okay, I know that team went to the Western Conference Finals, and that was one of the 2 best teams in Timberwolves history. But you tell me where there's a logical fallacy here. Okay, tell me when I'm telling lies. Okay,
a logical fallacy.
So right now, right now in this moment, and I'll say this moment being like the last 2 or 3 months crescendoing into this recent stretch of basketball where you got to keep in mind they shook the franchise days before the regular season started. And it just, they weren't going to come out of the gate as one of the best teams in the NBA in the month of November. Since the start of December, the Wolves are playing at a 50-win pace. They are 29-19 since the start of December. By the way, they are 10-0 in their last 10 games with Julius Randle, and we can talk more about him throughout State of the Wolves. Yes. But right now, in this moment, you're getting the best version of Naz Reid that you've gotten in his career as an offensive player, as a defensive player, a sniper three-point shooter. You're getting the best version of Jaden McDaniels that we've ever seen, better than last year's version of Jaden McDaniels. Great sign last night that Gobert is back, Randall's back, the OG starting five is back together, and everyone's all, oh man, this is classic Chris Finch going back to the... I'm waiting for that Judd rant at some point during the show here. But Jaden got his offense in despite, like, he's still getting to the rack and he's doing his things that he's been doing for the last 2.5 months. You've got the addition of now healthy Dante DiVincenzo plus Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. as key rotation players. Yep. Didn't have any of those three things last year. Anthony Edwards is a more dominant scorer. He's one of the best three-point shooters we've seen ever, really, if you look at the statistics. He's the fourth leading scorer in the NBA. He wasn't last year. Now, Gobert maybe has taken a step back, but looked great last night after some time off. And Mike Conley has taken a step back, but Mike Conley is also the best three-point shooter in the entire league since January 17th, which is a crazy note. So, again, like, I know they aren't going to win as many games, and I know that team went to the Western Conference Finals, and this team has a road ahead to match what that team did. But this team is deeper. This team has players playing better than they were playing last year. And it just took some time for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. You know, we had a conversation when that trade was made that there's two main reasons why you would trade Cat for Julius Randle, DDV, and a first-round pick. One being you got to get out of second apron hell. You can't, unless you are a fully formed championship team like the Celtics. Right. It caps you in ways as a, you know, as from a roster building standpoint. But the other reason we talked about was basketball reasons. Why would you trade Cat for Julius and Dante DiVincenzo? Well, because you're getting two good players back for one. You're getting one of the best three-point shooters in the league, just a guy that can come off screens. Look at Dante DiVincenzo the last 3 months as just a guy coming off screens and hitting catch-and-shoot threes. And you're seeing now Julius Randle fully integrated into this thing. Chris Finch being patient while everyone sat there with their pitchforks, right? But right now, would you trade Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo and a first-round pick for Karl Anthony Towns for the stretch run? I wouldn't. What we're seeing from Julius is averaging a triple-double since he came back almost. And Dante DiVincenzo, so... Wolves vibes are better than they were last year. It just took 4 months to play out and for everyone to get situated, integrated, chemistry built, and healthy, and all these things.
The only thing I'd say is I want to see now, because the potential is definitely there, how they play when the schedule gets tougher again. Like, they're taking care of business now, which is incredibly important because they've spent months not doing exactly that. But I would like to see now what they do when the schedule toughens up. But last night was a lot of fun. And DiVincenzo, in the case of Dante, is doing what we thought possible. Like Julius, to me, and I said this, when the trade was made, I actually like his style of play. Now, there were some things, the ball becoming sticky and stuff that became frustrating. But, you know, Dante DiVincenzo is doing something the Wolves, I don't think, had previously. And he's really good at it. And I don't know if it just took him time. I don't know if it was, you know, at first being rattled, unhappy or what. But you watch him from the time a couple of weeks before he got hurt, and since he's come back, like if there's a guy who's gone from it felt like being in his own head, which he was, to playing completely freely, it's him. Like it feels like a different person playing. Because you knew that this was here, but you're just like, when's it going to show up? Well, guess what? It showed up.
And Dex went through the overview. And so just to reiterate here, and again, these numbers include the first month and a half where they were 8-10 at one point. They're trying to figure this thing out. Julius Randle, much like Gobert in a different way a couple of years ago, and is a hard guy to figure out how to play with, and vice versa. And DiVincenzo even said so much, I think it was maybe after last night's game, that it takes a minute to, he's a tough guy to learn how to play with. But offensively alone, so think about this. Why would you trade one of the best shooting big men in the history of the league? What's going to happen to your offense? Well, even with the first month and a half trying to integrate this thing, they're 10th in the NBA in offensive net rating. And getting better, it seems like. And last year, I think I'm pulling this up. Yeah, they're 16th. So they traded Cat, and they've jumped from 16th to 10th in offensive net rating. And it's even better, I think, if you look at the last couple weeks, and they've had a bunch of injuries, but they are 7th in offensive net rating in the last 2 weeks. So basically, you're playing some bad teams, so that has to be baked into the equation. How much defense have you lost? Well, I think Dex said they were 7th, right? In
6th.
So okay, 6th in defensive net rating, and last year they were 1st, obviously. So, but to become a top 10 offense and take a little step back defensively, I think this makes them overall just a better team. They've got a better offensive team.
So this time last year, the Wolves were 44-21. They lost on March 10th a year ago today on a long road trip to the Lakers. And if you remember, too, by the end of the season, I remember going to that last regular season finale against Phoenix where the Suns just kicked the crap out of the Wolves. And you knew they were going to play the Suns, too, in that playoff series. A lot of Wolves fans left the arena like, oh, crap. This doesn't vibes. You talk about a vibe check. The vibes weren't great going into the postseason last year, and then immediately erased, and they go on their run to the Western Conference Finals. So it feels like a team that get them in the playoffs, and obviously depending on seeding, if they're out of the play-in, that's great news, but it does feel if this is continuing on the trek it's on, that they are not going to be an easy just push over 6, let's call them a 6 seed for right now. They would not be an easy push over 6 seed in the first round of the playoffs by any means.
And I still think there's a chance they could get up even higher than 6 if they take care of these teams. One more note on just kind of, because you said their record a year ago was 44-21, and right now they're 37-29. So win-loss record. Clearly they were a better win-loss record team a year ago. But if you look into the process, into the weeds, the DNA of these two teams. Shout out to Ant Edwards MN on Twitter. Not the real Anthony Edwards, but Ant Edwards MN on Twitter. Noted the Wolves jumped into the top 10 in offensive net rating last night. They're now one of 4 teams to be both top 10 on the season in offensive and defensive net rating. The other 3 teams, Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City. The 3 clear-cut best teams in the NBA and the Timberwolves are the 4 teams that are top 10 offensive and defensive net rating teams. So the Wolves' expected record based on net rating, it's kind of like point differential in the NFL, where you're a 500 team, but you're a plus 100 point differential. That would tell you that maybe you've lost some close, heartbreaking games. You're blowing out teams, and your process is better than your results. The Wolves' expected record is 42-24. So they are basically like a 2 or a 3 seed in the Western Conference that has shot themselves in the foot with the Utah game because of Anthony Edwards getting ejected and suspended, the Portland back-to-back losses in November. When you were, what's that?
I said just win one of those, like the Portland.
Yeah, but who cares at this point?
Just win a game.
Right?
I know
it could affect seeding, but my point is, okay, they lost those games. They lost the Washington game. They lost the Utah game. Unforgivable, whatever, the Milwaukee game. But I don't think if you're projecting forward, I don't think you have to worry about this team falling asleep at the wheel or Anthony Edwards being disengaged or unavailable. Maybe I'll be wrong on that. For games 2 and 3 against the Lakers in a playoff series. So the things that we ding them for, I don't think are transferable forward as much as people. Well, the Wizards game, okay, whatever. Like, they fell asleep during the 53rd game of an 82-game regular season. That's less of an indication of who they are than the body of work that we just laid out.
Where I'll get you is Ant has to keep his cool, though. Like last night, third quarter, he draws a foul and then he starts complaining. Dude, you're not learning. So like if Ant melts down and does something stupid, which I can't put past him, that's where I'm more concerned about that than, to fall asleep at the wheel. I don't think in a playoff game he does. Do I think that he goes off and does something really, really dumb? That's what concerns me.
Sure. And I won't I agree. Like, he definitely has room to grow. But you see now, as people thought Tim Conley should have been fired and what a boneheaded, self-sabotaging move, you're now seeing one of the deepest teams in the NBA come to fruition. Julius Randle has been a catalyst for this thing. And I'll pose the question back rhetorically, and if people want to answer in the comment section, would you trade the current version of Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a first-round pick for Karl Anthony Towns right now?
Are you asking me or the viewers?
Well, I'm asking anyone that wants to. I mean, the viewers can't comment because we're doing a podcast together right now.
I know, but you said to comment, so I didn't know if you were going to continue on your point.
You're waiting for Bob in the comment section to jump in.
I was waiting to see if there was more that you were going to say. If you could give me back Cat on a contract that was not much, I would take him back. If you could not, no.
You would trade Julius Randle.
I never would have made the trade.
Dante DiVincenzo and a first.
If the contract, the only reason to make the trade, but it's a compelling one, it's a good one, is the contract. So like if I could,
but his contract is the contract. Like you don't get to pick a third avenue here.
I would not trade 3 assets for a guy whose contract is going to weigh me down and cause massive problems. No, I would not. And Tim Conley wouldn't have. So yeah, no, this is finally starting to play out. I'm not going to dismiss the frustrations that we saw for months, but this team right now looks like a team that gets it. And 3 months ago, they looked like a team who was playing continually with their head up their arse way too much. And we're not seeing that now. And Chris Finch is doing a good job. It's funny, but I think if this continues down this current path and things continue to go well, and the Wolves probably wouldn't admit this, but you know what the biggest break was? The injuries.
Yeah, because it allowed it was a necessity for young guys to play, and
it forced Finchy. Yeah, it forced him to play guys. And look, there are certain guys probably that we like that aren't prepared to play, but Jalen Clark don't play. And Jalen Clark, I am a Jalen Clark stan. That he's got that assassin defensive demeanor that I just adore. Because that's a playoff thing right there.
Yeah. Jim Pete did a great job pointing out too that he hit, was at the end of the half or the end of the third quarter, he hit that buzzer beater 3 in transition. Yes. But he let De'Aaron Fox blow by him on the previous possession. So he you could see him coming down the court, kind of pissed at himself.
Yes.
But then he lines up a buzzer beating 3-pointer, cashes it, and instead of being happy about the 3, he yells the F word.
It's great
because he's pissed about the defensive lapse at the other end.
How awesome is that?
Yeah. So okay. Dex, did you give your vibe check?
I haven't, but I think we've covered it. So I'll just go to a favorite Timberwolves thing. How about that?
Sure.
Because I think this one's important. You guys mentioned Julius, but actually I want to go in a different direction because I feel like he's been an unsung hero over the last 10 to 15 games. Mike Conley appears to be back. So he might not be scoring at the volume that we're used to, but just in the last 3 games he's been on fire. Take that back to the last 10 games. He's shooting 54% from the floor, 53% from 3, initiating offense. He is no longer kind of the liability that he was offensively to start the year. And when you start in the playoffs and you've had now these issues with injuries and people are coming back, you're floating different things in and out of the starting lineup, you need a veteran point guard who has been there and done that. You don't need Mike Conley to go out there and dribble the air out the ball and score 15 to 20 points. Not that that's ever been his MO, but you do need a veteran point guard to initiate the offense and make the shots he is. And over those last 10 games, if you told me that this was his stat line for the rest of the year, 10 points per game, hitting 50% of his shots, over 50% of his shots, you'd take it every time. And his resurgence has also been a big reason why this offense is starting to click more.
Yeah, from Jace Frederick, TwinCities.com, Pioneer Press. Since January 17th, so almost a 2-month sample now, Mike Conley is leading the NBA in three-point percentage, 48% from three-point range, just ahead of Tyrese Halliburton, Malik Beasley, Josh Giddey, who's been ridiculous the last few weeks, Grayson Allen. So, yeah, I think it was unrealistic to expect at his age to give you 82 games of what he's been giving you the last couple of years. But if he's pacing this to now be crescendoing in the second half of the season, and they're not, they're managing his minutes. Even last night, he played 23 minutes so that because you have to clear some space for if you want Jalen Clark to play, if you want Terrence Shannon Jr. to play, you got to clear those minutes. So I kind of love the way they've handled it. If it makes sense for him to start, they do need shooting in that starting lineup, because if you're going to start Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and Rudy Gobert, those three guys are not good three-point shooters. So if you're going to put Anthony Edwards and now like a 45-50% red-hot Mike Conley, and then you got shooters coming off the bench. So they've handled it well, and they've scaled his minutes back accordingly, and he's been effective.
My favorite Mike Conley game in this 5-game streak has been the Charlotte game. He didn't play back-to-back. That's what that helps him, because he came back then against the Heat on Friday, scored 15 points, played really well, right? So again, and this actually dovetails perfectly into my favorite Wolves thing was, just as an example, last night, 10 guys played. Now, Terrence Shannon played, I think he played a total of 7 in that game. So he didn't play a ton. But nonetheless, Chris Finch used 10 guys before he put in the Scrubinis with a huge lead at the end. And the willingness to play 10 guys, the willingness to, because I feel like part of the problem at times with Conley is he is the binky blanket for Chris Finch, right? It's like something's going wrong. Mike, you play. And look, that can be awesome. That can be great. But when it gets abused, he's too old. So my favorite game was the fact that, and I do think that this is the evolution of Chris Finch within the season, that he sat him on the back-to-back, brought him back fresh against the Heat, and then like last night, he was rolling through guys off the bench when the game was not out of control. That to me is an enormous step. And again, I think it goes back to one thing. Guys got hurt. Finch had to play guys. And lo and behold, we find out that 2 or 3 guys really should play.
Yeah. And within that, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but last night was the first game where, all right, everyone is fully back and fully healthy and playing. And Gobert immediately had 3 fouls in the first quarter, and so he only played 20 minutes. That was kind of an anomaly. You're going to see him play more than 20. I am curious, when he's not in foul trouble, how many minutes will Gobert play? I think it should be less than the 34, 35. It should be in the 20s. But off the bench, Naz Reid still winds up getting his offense in, because how many minutes are they going to be devoting to Naz Reid now that everyone's back? Jaden McDaniels, is he going to go back to being a wallflower that stands in the corner now that everyone's back? Those guys were catalysts last night. Jaden McDaniels, again, early, getting his offense in, initiating, not just settling for threes, driving. And then later on in the game, if you're wide open in the corner, cool, let it fly after you've got some confidence built up. So, they had 8 guys in double figures last night. Just the way, and here's my dovetail into it. I think Julius Randle as a playmaker, this is my favorite current Wolves thing, as a playmaker has found this new direction with the Timberwolves, and even in his career. He's always been a pretty good passer, but he kind of said after the game in his press conference or his media scrum that, hey, I just want to win. And if he basically said, if they need me to be more of a playmaker and a passer than a guy that carries the offensive scoring load, I'm fine with that. And he has 10 assists last night. His last 3 games, 9, 9, and 10 assists. So he's almost out there like as a diet Nikola Jokic, just hunting for how can I use my size and gravity to get other guys open looks and to get the offense spinning around versus just bully balling my way into the paint and doing it all myself.
True.
So, there's been a couple games since he came back where he didn't even get to double-digit field goal attempts because he's looking to make plays for guys. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the offense has looked this good with him kind of falling in line a little bit and using his skills as a big man passer and playmaker to get Jaden McDaniels a look or Naz Reid or whoever. So, that has been a revelation. Julius Randle, the playmaker.
Is this Jaden now? Like we've seen this guy before in spurts, and then he disappears. And when he disappears, he really disappears. But it feels like the confidence now. It feels like we're building up a resume of consistency, where it doesn't feel as fleeting, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, to your point about the disappearing act, like he'd give you little flashes here and there over the years of, oh, there it is. There's a 23-point game. Or, oh, that's the 18 points that we should be able to lean on, right, as a franchise. So since January 1st, well, he had a couple single-digit games there. Since January 15th, so a 2-month stretch, he has scored in double digits in all but one game.
Yeah.
All but one game. He started the season in November in the first 12 games. He only had double-digit games in 4 of the first 12 games. And he was like, because 3 years ago, he was up to 12 points a game scoring average, and he was a better three-point shooter for that year. But it's not that he's completely ditched shooting three-pointers, but I think the organization and Jaden have realized, all right, it's no longer just like a 2 or 3 month slump here. Right. You're not a guy that should never take a three, but you're not a guy that should just be standing in the corner, even wide open and just launching threes. You should be using your athletic ability. His mid-range game is butter. Like that, his little fadeaways from like 12, 15 feet, the way he gets to the rim, he's springy.
And he's going to make more threes if he is in the flow of the entire game.
Yeah, the confidence and whatever. Yeah,
well, right, and it's just the flow. Like when he stands in the corner and launches threes, he becomes so one-dimensional. To when he gets inside, great shot, and then he goes and takes a three, it goes. So like the three is part of his game. I think is fine. When the three becomes like the focal point of this is what you should do, it's not his game.
Yep. And because they have guys like Jalen Clark, they've got guys that can be the on-ball defender too. It allows him to play off-ball on defense more often, thus preserving energy, thus more available to rebound, more available to bring that energy into the offensive side of the ball.
Jalen Clark.
So over the last 2 months, he's averaging, Jaden McDaniels, 16 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, a block, and he's shooting 52% from the floor. So, by the way, he's also one of the best free throw shooters in the NBA. He doesn't shoot a ton of them, but he's like a 90% 3-point shooter over the last couple months. So, yeah, all of those. It's all a byproduct of like the pieces coming together, the depth allowing Jaden McDaniels to not shoulder a defensive load for 40 minutes every night that they used to. We'll get to our least favorite Wolves things to wrap the episode. A reminder, it's tournament season. My bookie is here for you guys.
Yep, exactly right. March Madness is putting $100,000 on the line. Think you could build the perfect bracket? Take your shot at MyBookie's $100,000 bracket contest. Your bracket gets busted. What are you going to do? No problem. Single game matchups are where the money is made. Bet every game. Scope out player props. It'll be great fun. Sign up now with the promo code Flagrant Howls and claim your deposit bonus. Go to mybookie.website/Flagrant Howls. That's mybookie.website/Flagrant Howls. Make March Madness more fun with MyBookie. Again, mybookie.website/Flagrant Howls to join in the March Madness fun.
Across the street from Target Center is a little place called Kieran's. Dex?
Absolutely. Despite the ebbs and flows of the Wolves season, you can always count on Kieran's. They have great game day specials, great pours, pre or post game. Doesn't matter whether you're, in fact, maybe do both. All right, double dip on the bookends there between going to a Wolves game. Go check out Kieran's. It's just steps away from the Target Center.
And a shout out to Federated. Federated Mutual Insurance Company is here for you business owners out there, whether you're based in Minnesota or in one of the other 49 states. If you're a Wolves fan somewhere else, Federated has been around for over 100 years, helping to provide risk management tools and resources, make sure that you can stay focused on growing your business while they stay focused on safety and preventing claims. They're all about personal relationships. They're all about elevating your business through risk management. And you can find out about the rich history of this company and the industries they specialize in at federatedinsurance.com. Okay, least favorite Wolves thing here, Judd.
The only thing I've got, and I broached it earlier in the show, was Ant, who's trying his best. I know he's trying hard, okay? But, dude, you drew a foul, and I think he was upset that it wasn't called quicker or by the official who called it, that I don't care. Long story short, dude, just don't say a thing. Like you're going to the line. Like this is why, and he didn't get teed up. That's very important. But this is why his body of work gets him texts, right? The constant complaining, the whining about you drew a foul and you're going to whine, which shows up the official because he's got the tendency to stand there, arms spread out, like, where was this? Or he claps. You are too valuable. You're too important. And quite frankly, this team is going too well for you to continue that. Like, you're doing a lot of great things. The 3-point shooting is off the charts. There's not a lot, in my opinion, not to like about how this team is playing right now. So I don't have a long list, but the importance of Ant being on his best behavior possible into the playoffs so that officials aren't like going into games sort of pissed off, to me, is incredibly important.
Yeah. He just he doesn't have that ability to take a deep breath still. And
it's
right?
It's
the one biggest thing. It's like you got to just get to the playoffs so it resets the clock on those things. Because doesn't he get 7 freebies until he gets suspended in the playoffs?
But just don't do it, man. Just don't do it.
There was one where he was like back there doing his thing, and it's now 5-on-4 the other way, and you could see guys on the bench. I think his teammates are now empowered to get on him, because the minute that you got suspended because you couldn't control your emotions for whatever 15 or 16 technical fouls,
right?
That now gives your teammates freedom to say, "Dude, you're impacting us. So go back, play defense. We love you. Mm-hmm. You're still one of the best players in the league, but go down there and figure it out." Dex, what's your least favorite Wolves thing?
Yeah, look, it's great they're winning games. I think this was my least favorite Wolves thing last week too, but it just, as the Wolves win, the entire Western Conference nearly above them continues to win. Golden State is still super hot. They've won 9 of 10. They've won 4 in a row. Houston has come down to earth. That's a good sign. The Wolves are, again, 3 games back, so they certainly can. It's just, I would love to see the Wolves get out of this play-in situation, not have to worry about playing in a play-in. Just as the Wolves win, so does the Western Conference. Now, I guess you could say, hey, if they weren't winning, then it'd be a bigger problem. But for goodness sakes, can some luck, just a little bit of league luck, go to the Wolves side so they can hopefully not have to be sweating out game 82 as they've won potentially like 15 of 20 games.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. Yeah, I still think Golden State is going to keep rising up. It's very possible that you could look at a Western Conference where like the Lakers and Golden State are among the top 4 seeds in the West. I could see the Grizzlies, like the Rockets have been slipping or plateauing while other teams rise up for about 2 months now. Oklahoma City, real quick. So they're gone. Like they're 12 games up on the 2 seed. They are going to be the number 1 seed. Oklahoma City. So they've now won 7 games in a row again since the Wolves beat them in overtime on February 24th. They thrashed Denver last night, 127-103. The last time Oklahoma City lost a game that wasn't a loss to the Timberwolves was January 29th. It's March 10th today.
That was a terrible loss too. Yeah, that's crazy.
They literally, like, their only 2 losses since January 29th are to the Timberwolves. And the Wolves had a bunch of injured players in both those games. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's if you're Oklahoma City and you're looking at the standings, you're like, oh, man, boy, if the Wolves lose to the Clippers in the play-in, then beat the Kings or something, then they'd be the 8th seed. So I think it'd be disappointing at this point if the Wolves found their way into the 8th seed, because it would mean that they would like stall out against bad teams and then lose the play-in game.
Yep.
But if it came down to a 7-game series against Oklahoma City, I don't think there'd be any hesitation or fear like there was at the end of last year. We're like, oh, the Suns, oh my gosh. I think you'd feel pretty good.
That Suns loss still. It just, fans were like, whoa, they're going to get drilled. It's like, do you really think that Chris Finch like tipped his hand completely here too?
Yeah, and maybe Oklahoma City is like, we haven't tipped our hand yet either. So I think, well, my least favorite thing was going to be the Mike Conley slander that, hey, this guy is completely cooked. He should not be playing minutes. Even when he was shooting like 35% on the season, he was still adding value. I think they've handled him brilliantly. Don't give up on him. Still use him in spurts, and the fact that they've been able to find a sweet spot with just way fewer minutes. But yeah, the Mike Conley slander has been my least favorite thing, and now he's the best 3-point shooter in the league since January 17th. So just keep him on a little restriction. Dillingham's kind of out of the rotation at this point because you want to find room for Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. So Conley is your primary main point guard.
Where is this team right now in the standings if Chris Finch had listened to the Mackey plan like 3 weeks in? Play more guys, take Conley and play him still, but not as much. I think you've been on the Gobert restrictions a little bit for a couple months.
No.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
where's this team now?
Chris Finch has been painted as this like bumbling idiot for the last 3 months. That like, what is Chris Finch doing? But
who should I play?
Right. I mean, there's always these reasons behind the scenes. Like he knows Julius Randle better than any of us idiots on microphones. And he has now, throughout the course of the last 4 months, this is about as well as Julius Randle has played, not statistically or box score, but team winning basketball. They haven't lost a game with him in the lineup, 10 straight. And it's not because he's been minimized as much as it's like his role has kind of shifted, evolved. And some of that, like, do you think Julius Randle is just waking up and Finch is working these relationships behind the scenes? Do I also think that he waited a little too long to get some of these younger guys in? Like, did you need to play an 8-man rotation for the first 2 months? No, like that drove all of us nuts.
Right.
But there's also a method to some of the madness. It was also, I think, painted too as like, boy, Finch and Conley must not be on the same page. I mean, Dillingham's 19. So I think everyone went into the Dillingham thing knowing that he's not going to immediately be a 25-minute. He's not going to be this elite scorer in the league.
Right.
So some of it is these are smart, successful people. And on all of our podcasts, when it warrants hammering a front office or a coach, like,
right,
I think we are down for it. But I do feel like Finch and Tim Connolly have built enough of their resumes up to where, all right, even though this looks a little weird or smells different, let's let it play out and see where this thing is at after the All-Star break. And here we are.
Absolutely. And I also will go back to, I credit circumstances. Dillingham's lack of playing time was a frustration because Finch wouldn't play anyone else. Like it's like, now I'm fine with it, but it's like, you've got to play guys. I had no idea, and clearly Finch didn't, that Jalen Clark would be this effective, right? The Julius thing, I think the most important thing there was he got hurt and had to watch. I think the fact that he was forced to the bench, he was forced to watch, which, by the way, if you're a smart vet, you pick up on a ton of stuff. It helps to watch. So like, I do think the Wolves have been gifted some circumstances that really changed things. Julius strikes me as a headstrong dude. And I think that he came here probably perplexed by the trade, but also with an idea of how he had to play. And I think being forced to watch a month of games, he probably watched it and said, oh, I can do this and this and this instead and be a more effective player. And right now, the way that he is going and what he is putting on film is far more advantageous, in my opinion, to him being able to opt out and get a contract elsewhere than the first 3 months.
Well, that is a conversation that seemed unthinkable like 2 months ago, which is, okay, is there a world where it actually makes sense for him to be back either on a 1 year or on a 3 year.
Or
And
get
it's,
huh.
I don't think that it's
Yeah.
a conversation for today's state of the Wolves, but they'd have to like win a playoff series or maybe go back to the Western Conference Finals. But right now, with everything we just talked about, and the fact that the number 1 seed in the Western Conference only loses to the Timberwolves and nobody else apparently, it is not unrealistic to say that this team can be very sneaky dangerous come April, May, potentially June.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. They got the Nuggets coming up here in a couple nights, and that should be a good time. So, all right, Flagrant Howls. That's a wrap on this State of the Wolves Monday here. We got hottest Wolves takes later this week. Wolves get a couple days off, like we said, until they play the Nuggets on, I think it's Wednesday night. Over on the Purple Daily side, we got you covered. It's free agency, frenzy, bonanza week across the NFL. And so we will have all of the Vikings moves covered. And also, by the time you listen to this, Purple Daily Draft Party tickets are on sale officially as of 10 a.m. Central Time this Monday. SKORNorth.com/draft. So check that out too. This is your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast, Flagrant Howls.